Welcome to the 11th Commandment, brought to you by Spook Nation. I'm Brian Stevens here with Spook. Brother, man, can you believe it's already the end of May and we're about to hit June?
It's crazy. I mean, turkey season has flown by. I'm telling you, we're going to blink our eyes 3 times and it's going to be bow season. It's just flying by. I've been trying to keep my food plots bush hogged and it's raining every other day and the sun pops out. My clover's growing fast, so I'm trying to keep it clipped off, and yeah, it's going to be here before we know it.
It is, and we got so much good stuff coming that we're going to share with everybody. And you mentioned turkey season. We just got done having an awesome hunt at your place that we got that video. It's going to be coming out soon of a good bow
Yeah.
hunt.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
A ton of fun. And speaking of clover, folks, if when you see the some of the video and the farm, we're talking Clover City. So those deer and animals have got a ton to eat, and there's no wonder why they're doing so well. But let's jump in today, my friend, into Whiplash, that giant deer behind you. And oh, by the way, when you see what's behind Spook, we're going to be producing some video for you guys that Spook's actually doing a deep dive on his entire trophy room, which I've seen some of these animals, friends, when you have a chance to sit there in person and go, it take your breath away. And so there's a treat coming, and we're doing the whole trophy room and getting some inside stories on these animals, which I think I loved personally sitting there listening. I know you guys will too. So back to Whiplash and that beautiful animal behind you. Let's talk about him, Spook, and give me a little bit of history of, your encounters with this deer.
So the way he got his name is JD and I had been up and taken down trail cameras and taken down some stands. It was the end of season, and we were coming home, and JD was going through the cards on the computer, and I was driving, and I kept glancing over at the computer just out of, I don't know, boredom, and JD was into the pictures, and I glanced over and I saw this picture of this, just kind of a small frame deer, but he had a lot of points and had a little drop hanging down and another kicker on the other side. And I did a quick double take, and he was already on another picture. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so we named him Whiplash because I jerked my head back around so fast after seeing the picture. That's how we came up with that, which I thought was kind of funny. But
Absolutely.
But when I saw that picture, I was like, that deer has the potential to be something special. There's no way that I could have ever anticipated he was going to blow up into what he did. I figured with his small frame and with the junk he had, he was probably I thought he was still 190 as the year before. And it may be in the 1s, but there's no way I could have ever anticipated. And then we kind of went all in on mineral and a lot of different things. And I don't know how much difference that makes in 1 year. I'm sure it's sometimes it's just deer specific, but I will say this deer had a really good alfalfa field to feed on.
Okay.
And I obviously think that helped tremendously. And so with the alfalfa and the minerals that we already had and the ones we added, and I was using Flawless mineral, and it was just he just blew up. I mean, when we got our first trail camera picture of him, he was shedding his velvet.
And this is the year before?
Well, so the upcoming season, as the season was approaching, yeah. So our first picture of him when we named him Whiplash was actually in January from the season before.
Got it.
And then here we are in September, and we've got a place set up, and we probably got 3 or 4 cameras out, and he shows up, and we get some really good pictures of him while he's shedding his velvet. And I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, I sit there and stare at the picture and just try to figure out what he was. And with that velvet,
got so much on him.
Oh, yeah. And then with all that velvet was hanging off of him, it was crazy. And so I got super excited at that point, obviously, and just went all in mentally on the things that we were going to need to do. There was a bean field and a corn field near the alfalfa field also that they planted in the spring, and it was out there. And he was coming to those beans and the alfalfa. But I set up originally. I set up in the edge of the field, the wood line in the field, thinking that early season we could kill him there. Well, we didn't. We not only did we not kill him, he disappeared off the cameras. And now let me rephrase that. We did get a few pictures of him at night.
Okay.
And I did get a picture or two. I think I showed you one of them, a picture or two of him in velvet in the daylight before. No, I'm wrong about that. The only picture of Whiplash we got in the daylight for the most part was when he was shedding his velvet and right before season.
Got it. Okay.
And then the pictures went nocturnal.
Got it.
And
okay.
we weren't getting as many of them.
Okay.
And I think my guess is there was, even though I didn't find many acorns, I think there was just enough that started falling in the beginning of the season in early October to make him that way, where he was probably eating acorns more. But they were so scattered, I just couldn't pinpoint anything specific. And I stuck with the field edge for quite a while. And I finally told JD, I was like, man, we're gonna have to regroup. And they were calling for rain one day. And this was in probably about the 20th of October, something in that range. And so I just went on a walkabout in the middle of the day in the rain, and didn't even carry my bow or anything. I was just going to make a super fast circle and like on 300 or 400 acres and start out there. There was the land adjoining the property had the timber cut. So the land joining the fields some of it had been clear cut, some of it had been select cut, which was a good diversity of habitat. And it had a couple of logging roads that V'd off and went through it. And I got into an area where there was a logging road that came off one point, a logging road that came off another point, and then it hit another logging road. And then right where that Y was at, another logging road come in from the side and turn. And so there was like a kind of a little natural intersection there. And I found like 3 or 4 rubs and a couple of scrapes right there.
Okay.
And I was just like, this looks like the spot to me. And it was probably about 500 yards back off of maybe not quite that far, 400 or 500 yards back off of the field edges. So I said, that deer has he's smart enough or wary enough, or just his personality. He's not really comfortable in coming out there in the daylight. This part of the year, this part of the season, there's enough acorns to keep him back there. So we set up right there in that intersection. And of course, we were in a state where we could feed. And so I just started, feeding super heavy right there. I took Antler Grow and sprayed all over the vegetation around me. And within I probably covered an acre with the Antler Grow. And we were using corn with corn coat on it from Come Here Deer. And I set up, I think, 3 cameras, and probably within a week we had a daylight picture.
Wow.
And so I was really, really excited. I felt like that when you get a picture after a new move like that, we went in and put up a big tall ladder in a forked sycamore tree, and then I put the cameraman stand on it, and we brushed it all up there. Again, I pulled cedars up, took zip ties, so I built me basically a little cocoon up there for JD and I to hide in. And it was just a great setup. The only thing I didn't like about it is that it was down in the hollow. So you get down there and the winds are very inconsistent. They're switching all the time. And so that's something that we had to deal with. And we pretty much used 3 ozonics in that area almost every time we hunted it. And
were you worried about spook? I mean, if you're 400 yards in, were you worried about in that scenario, like being able to get in and get out without bus and everything? I mean, had you
so
found a way to do
one of the
that?
things, absolutely. So one of the things that we were fortunate about was that there was another logging road that cut out along the base of one of those ridges and actually got us out of the area without having to go out in the fields.
Nice.
So that was very, very helpful. And that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I may not have remembered that had you not brought it up. But that was there were actually two of those. There was actually two of the ones that wired off went out to the base of the ridges. But the one particular one allowed us to get closer to the truck the fastest. And so we were to get in and out pretty easy. And
Okay.
yes, that helped tremendously. I
All
think
right.
if it hadn't have been for that, it would have made a difference.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
The
Let me
other
ask you.
thing,
Yep.
one
Yep.
other thing.
Yeah.
So in saying all that, like the crop fields were up front, then we're set up, say, 400 or 500 yards. And then most of the cut timber was behind us. So in saying that and getting back to your point about getting in and out, the deer mostly were coming from around in the cut timber to a left and right and behind, and what I call behind the crop fields, rather than coming from the direction that we were coming from in and out at. Our biggest problem was getting out in the evening without spooking anything that had walked by us out to the fields.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
No, that's a very important point. Have you ever used the ozonics walking in or walking out, like turned it on? And I've seen that, and I just love your thoughts on, do you really think that works? Is it necessary? And have you ever used it like that?
In the beginning, I did when they came up with the concept with the pack that it's open and mesh at the top, and I did. But I felt like that was that would be, to me, that would be more beneficial when you're on a spot and stalk, say on mule deer or elk or something like that. With whitetails, when you're just mainly trying to get to and from your stand, most of the time, I'm trying to be as quiet as I can, but I'm also trying to get out or get in as quick as I can.
Okay.
And so, I don't know that the ozone, I don't use it much for that purpose.
Okay. I just thought I'd
I
ask.
could see where there's an application, especially if you're on a spot and stalk. It could be spot and stalk for whitetail, but I see that being a really good opportunity with elk and mule deer, because a lot of times, your stalk slow, you're stopping multiple times, you're having to move multiple times, but at least while you're sitting still and you're set up and you're waiting on the deer or the elk to come in, I could see how that would work really good. Not so much. I don't use it not so much just for walking in and out.
Got it. All right. So now you found this crossroads, if you will. You got your ladder stand set up. You've got picture of him, and so are you waiting for a weather change, or are you getting right in there immediately as soon as you get that picture?
So we hunted it. I think we went one weekend. It was probably the weekend before Halloween, which was my birthday. And we had a few pictures of him, and we had a daylight picture of him. So now I'm getting super pumped up, and my plan is not to come back until sometime around Halloween. Unknowingly to me, my wonderful wife had planned a couple's outing for Halloween in Nashville and had booked a hotel room and made dinner reservations and all this for Halloween. And so I got locked down by another whitetail for Halloween. And of course, you're going to love this. So had a great time, priceless. Couldn't have been any better. I got the truck loaded up November 1st. Weather's awesome.
You're still in your Halloween costume.
Yeah. Face is still painted and everything. And JD and I leave on the morning of November 1st. We drive, I think it took us 6 hours to get there. We hunt that afternoon, which would have been November the 1st. We didn't of course, didn't see him. I saw a couple little bucks, couple of does. We swapped the cards when we went in to the stand. And when we checked the card that night, he had come in Halloween afternoon at 4:30. I know.
That's true love right there. And you weren't even mad. You were heartbroken, but golly.
Yeah. But I was confident.
Yeah. I'm kidding.
I was confident that I was like, this is awesome. Yes, we would have liked to have been.
What we
We
did
would
is
have liked to have
working.
been there, but he's been here. He came in and it looked like he had come in with a doe. So very confident. The next morning, November 2nd, I saw a glimpse of a deer. I couldn't tell what it was. It looked like it was a buck. I started rattling, grunted, wheezed a couple of times and looked, and here he came. And obviously excitement and anticipation is at its peak. It's a beautiful November 2nd morning. Leaves have changed colors, light north wind, mid 30s, and here he comes. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. It's going to happen right now. He gets up to about 70 yards in a honeysuckle and briar thicket, and he just stands there forever. I tell he's not going to finish. Yep. Because he's sitting there looking for the fight. He can't see anything.
Yep. And you're not, just so real quick right there, I think this is an important moment. In those scenarios, when you got a buck looking at you, you've caught his attention. He's turned, he's coming and he's stopped. He's looking at your area. He's not seeing it. You're not rattling again. You're not typically, because if you do, then you're like, talk to me about that moment there.
So here's an interesting thing. Most people use rattling horns. I get it. I've used them a gazillion times. Well, for sure, if he's 70 yards, you can't reach over and pick up the rattling horns and rattle, or you can't do anything.
Correct.
You know, you can't even I couldn't even draw. He's just standing there posed, just looking. I mean, just like he is right there. He's just looking.
Yep.
Now, there's a product that I absolutely love that I'm hoping that I can get this product at some point and take it to market. It's called I think he calls it a rattle box, but it fits on your hip, on your belt. And you can I usually keep it right on the back side of my hip and on the side. And you can that thing sounds so good. He put so much research into that. So it allows you to do, and once you learn how to handle it and you practice and what you're doing, it's amazing what you can do with it.
Okay.
But even at that distance, and as wary as he was acting, like I wasn't willing to try it.
Right.
So then he starts circling us. So I can tell he's going to try to get downwind, which is on the uphill side behind us. And as he was circling, I reached up and turned two of the ozonics that direction as he was moving around in anticipation that he was. And it was the coolest thing, even though it broke my heart. It was so awesome. So he comes all the way around behind us. He's about 80 or 90 yards. And he stands there up on the hillside looking for the fight, looking for these two bucks. I don't even know how long it was. I don't even think that I don't even think JD could see him. I think there was enough leaves on the trees. I had gotten my binoculars up, was up against a tree. Yeah. And I was looking, and I'm watching him, and he's just really stretching it out. He's working hard trying to figure out what's going on. And it was so funny, Brian. So all of a sudden, just like in very slow motion, he went like this. He picked his leg up real slow and went one time.
Okay.
So you're like, okay, what's the interpretation of that exactly? It's like, what do you, so obviously is that you're full of crap, buddy. I see there's nothing there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got you.
Or he caught a little whiff of something or something, but it was just so funny how slow he pulled that leg up and then he just stomped one time. And then he just turned around and just walked off real slowly. Well, dude, it wasn't 5 minutes. We heard 2 bucks fighting up on the hill. So he found him a fight. He went and found him an encounter. So we listened to it 2 or 3 minutes, and probably 15 minutes later, I look, and here he comes walking. Well, I thought it was another buck, because when I looked at it, I could see the awfulest. I thought it was a giant, even bigger, non-typical, because and then when I got to looking, he had a pretty good size oak limb with leaves on it hung in his antlers.
Wow.
So I don't know what happened up there. I know he fought.
Yeah.
I guess he got in showing out on an oak limb or something, got it wadded up in his antlers. He walked back by us at probably 80 to 100 yards. I grunted at him. I decided not to go for the rattle again at that point. I just grunted. Yep. I snort wheezed a couple of times. He actually turned and side skirted us at about 60 or 70 yards and then just left. So that was our first real encounter with
That's
him.
a heck of an encounter, buddy.
Yeah. It was exciting. It was epic. It was fun to get to see him with your own eyes for the first time. And so was awesome. And I don't remember. I think we hunted a couple of days. We didn't see him. And then we had another morning where he came by us with his nose to the ground about 70 or 80 yards, never checked. I grunted, snort wheezed at him, and when he got out of sight, I rattled. We probably, from the time we saw him to the time he was gone, was maybe 2 minutes, and that was it.
He wanted no part of it.
That's okay. He's still here. I believe during this 7 or 8 day stretch, we got a couple more nighttime pictures, because when we would go into hunt, I would pull the card, put another card in on 2 cameras. So we got up to November 7th, and we had pretty good weather all this time.
Are you seeing other bucks during this time too, Spook?
Yeah. I mean, we saw, we see a few. I had done some mock scrapes, and I was using estrus doe urine, fresh estrus urine that I had somebody was sending me. Another product that Flawless does a really good job at. Danny has really good estrus and buck urine products that are really fresh. But anyways, I think the biggest buck we saw, we may seen a couple of nice deer, 125 to 140 deer, and then 4 or 5 small bucks, year and a half old bucks.
Okay.
And they would come in periodically with and there was always 7 or 8 does coming in. But the morning, I think it was of November 7th, it was a real nice morning, kind of overcast and cool. There was a little doe that came in and fed maybe 5 minutes and then went on out the trail. And probably 15 minutes later, we saw him coming off the hillside. And he looked like, to me, he had that attitude where he was actually coming in. I had the feeling he was at the pace he was coming in, and it's like he was looking to come in and feed for a few minutes.
Okay.
He hit her trail before he got to us and whipped around and left. I grunted, snort, wheezed, done 2 or 3 things. He stopped one time, looked back, put his nose back to the ground, and left again.
Yep.
So now that's another encounter we've had. So I told JD, I was like, we're in the chips, though. We're in the chips. And that afternoon, 45 minutes before dark, maybe 30 minutes before shooting time was over, here she came. And I didn't know that it was the same one, other than the one that morning was a small, I think it was just a year and a half old doe. And it looked like the same size deer. And here she comes. She come in, started eating, and look, and here he come. He's following her right in. So he gets at about 45 yards, standing in some more like honeysuckles and briars, and he's just standing there watching her. He's not, you can tell he's not going to come in. He's just standing there watching her. Now, one thing I had done that morning, I took and cut an evergreen limb, and I took a screw-in step and screwed it into a tree. And I had a wire wrap that I used, and I wired that limb to that screw-in step. And I made a big fresh mock scrape that morning. I put a whole bottle of estrus urine in it. I just went crazy with it.
Yep.
And it was funny, that morning I climbed up the tree in the dark, and by the time I got my bow ready and had everything all set up and ozonics turned on, and it was still dark. I heard something look, and I put my binoculars up, and there was a buck in the scrape that I had just put out.
Wow.
6 or 7 minutes prior.
Wow.
Now it's just
okay.
a small basket rack, but
It does.
yeah, I had action. And so there was actually a couple more bucks walked through there. So now bucks are cruising pretty good. You're seeing bucks, they're pretty much not even stopping. They're just walking through. But that natural intersection where those points came off, those logging roads were crossing. We had deer walking by us more and more regular. Sometimes we see some of those small bucks 2 or 3 times in a morning. And so that afternoon, okay, here comes what looked to be the same young doe. And he comes in, and he's just sitting there staring the situation down. And he looks over, and he can see that little buck. There's a little buck in the new mock scrape, just going crazy. He's doing the licking branch, and he's raking his horns and his eyes, and he's pawing, but he didn't even pay any attention to him. He's like, he'd look over there at him, but he's like, because I don't know how they knew this, but the little buck wasn't paying any attention to the doe, which I thought was very interesting. It's like he knew he was there. I couldn't tell that he had seen Whiplash standing there because he was tucked back but he didn't try to bug the doe. So we're sitting there, and I told JD, I just whispered, I said, he's not going to come in. He's just not going to do it. He just smells a rat or something. I said, there's no reason why he shouldn't walk up here with her,
Correct.
And I'm sitting there at that time, I don't have much hope that we're going to get him that afternoon. And all of a sudden, to my back left shoulder, I just hear crunch, 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 crunch. And you can tell it's a buck, and it's got a little bit of weight to it. It didn't sound like a small deer. It sounded like a buck. And I never turned my head because I'm sitting there the whole time, just in the face off and just watching him. On. I wouldn't even turn my head. There wasn't any reason for me to turn my head, really, because I knew that it wasn't him, obviously, because I'm sitting there looking at him. Well, come to find out, it was a buck. And when he stepped out in that old logging trail, he saw the doe, and he started walking up to her. Whiplash went into a different world. His eyes rolled back in his head. His ears folded back. The hair stood up all over his body. And his head just rolled over, and here he comes.
My gosh.
It was epic. He just was like, no, you're not. Here I am.
Coming in like a dang bull. I love it.
In, just walked right up there like a champion at 13 yards. And actually, I was a little bit, how can you be mad at yourself? He's right here, But I did, I shot him high. I guess with him being so close, I was really high up in the tree, and just the angle, I hit him in the backbone, and he fell right there. And I had to get down and shoot him again. But it was a very, very exciting chase. It was fun doing the show. I think we broke it up in 3 episodes. And just building the anticipation. We'd never done that with another deer before. And so just building the anticipation with the viewers up, and the encounters and the story. And it was just priceless. And there again, I just felt like we did a really good job of realizing that it didn't seem like our original plan was working so
Yep.
good. We needed to make a change. Got in there and found a good place where the terrain and the trails and everything kind of crossed and kind of fed into this one area, and used it as our main place to set up, and and it turned out to be a good intersection for the bucks. And another thing we found that I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but we found several old rubs in that area too. So a lot of times where you find old rubs that are anywhere from 3 or 4 or 5 years old up until the year before, bucks are coming through there
Yep.
pretty constantly throughout that part of the year. So a lot of times that can be something to seriously look at for a stand site. And that's kind of what happened here. And
Mhm.
it was as exciting as you could ever imagine, just nerve wracking. Seeing him so many times was fun, calling him in the times when we did. It was fun sitting there watching him watch her. And then when this other buck came in, the way his attitude and just full
Yeah.
commitment at that point to come in was all priceless.
No, absolutely. That's beautiful. So I gotta ask, just because he's so big, what does he score?
So when I walked up to him, well, I knew when I saw him, I'd already seen enough trail camera pictures of him. I already had him over 250. And when I walked up to him, we tracked it actually. So by the time we got down and got the camera ready and got everything done, it had gotten late enough down in the woods that JD turned his light on his camera. And
Okay.
when he had went off in a ditch there where just a wet weather ditch with some rock and stuff in it. And when I got down in there and I picked him up, I was just like, because he's only got a 14.5 inch spread. So he's a real compact deer, but he grosses 263.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I mean, with only a 14.5 inch spread, but he's just so unique, super heavy.
Yeah.
He's got basically 4 main drops on this side and another small one and one drop on this side. And just a, a deer of a
Oh, he's
lifetime to be such a compact rack and to have that many inches was just unbelievable.
no, to see him in person is just he's amazing, and the mass and what he carries. And I mean, you can just see, I mean, how big his head and body is. He's just a giant, big, mature deer. So all right, I'm gonna rewind back.
Yeah.
Let's say you said something else in this scenario, and you've said it in the past, and that is you created a community setting, if you will, where you want multiple animals coming through there. Which that in that scenario, look, that buck could have come in there no matter if you hadn't sprayed all the antler grow and put all of the different food in there, but likelihood you had multiple deer coming in and that other buck triggered him to do. So that to me is again a learning of creating a community environment with mock scrapes and with food in a big enough area where deer are gonna some point want to come through and cruise and check
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I don't like feeding in one pile either. I try to spread it out in a according to how you're set up and being set up back in the woods. I put it in behind trees and just spread it all out. And I had probably 25 different spots in there where I had corn. And then the antler grow, I sprayed it on everything basically within shooting range. And it
Correct.
was so funny. This one of those times when we had just really started using antler grow a lot. And when we did it the first time and come back after being gone for a couple weeks, you couldn't believe how many of the leaves and how much of it they had eat. And we watched a
Wow.
lot of deer eat the leaves. That was one of those places where JD thought I was might be kind of being too risky to put it out in the spot where we were hoping to kill Whiplash. And my point was, I was just like, hey, either we believe in it or we don't. And
Yep.
the only way we're going to know is we're just going to have to try it. And man, they just killed it. I mean, several of those deer, well, almost all those deer at some point when they would come in, were browsing on the leaves and the foliage that I had sprayed it on. And
What
so I've seen it with my own eyes
Well,
on several
here's what
occasions.
I like about that, Spook. If you sit back and look, we've all hunted over bait in states where you can legally do
Right.
that, and a lot of times, if it's a feeder or if it's a concentrated area, the deer get a little spooky a lot of times because they're looking, they're eating, they're looking, and not all the time, but I've seen a lot of deer where they just are a little bit on higher alert. If you have something where you can spray it on natural browse
Yeah.
and they're just cruising and eating and there's an attractant to it, I think it brings down a little bit of that alertness and just has a little bit of a comfort that they're just not as on edge.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I've used it a lot. Of course, I use it. Matter of fact, it's time for me to spray my clover with Antler Grow now. But I've used it a lot, and I haven't had a single negative experience with it. And the deer eat it well. And I mean, even JD, when we went back to a few of these times when we've done some of these areas, and I just went crazy spraying foliage just in maybe a 60-yard circle. And when you come back a week or two later and you see
Yeah.
how much of it they've eat, it's pretty awesome. And then to spray it, a couple of times, I think I've mentioned that we sprayed it like the evening before, or went and set up in the middle of a day on something, or sprayed it in the middle of the day, and then went and got in the stand that afternoon, and they come in and they start sniffing, and next thing they're eating it. And
Yep.
it hadn't been out there over a few hours,
Yep.
and so with all that being said, I mean, I've had tremendous luck. I just think it adds another piece of attractability to I think the mock scrapes help with creating the community area, the feed, the whole 9 yards. The more activity you can create in the area, hold on a second.
No worries. We can stop.
Okay, back to it. The more activity you can create there, I think the better chance during the rut that you're going to have a doe that's going to be in there that's going to lead a buck in. And I'm telling you, I've had this happen several times on. I mean, I know a lot of people say they struggle with the rut, but there again, I just hunt the food sources. Yes, we were backed off of the big food sources, the alfalfa and the corn. I think they had already picked the beans by then. I don't think the corn was still out there, but
Okay.
we had backed off all that, and just because I think that those deer were staging back there and wait until it got dark to come out in the field for the most time. And when you realize that that's kind of the attitude they're taking, then you have to adjust. And I don't think it's ever a bad idea to back off the fields, especially in the afternoons. So it's just a matter of, can you get in and out of there without messing it up? That's
Yep.
really that's
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something you've said over and over again. Would you have, considering what you just said, you went in there on a day when it was raining, middle of the day. Let's say you hunted a few more times and you weren't getting any daylight pictures out in the food source.
Mhm.
You were hunting out there, you're not seeing them. Would you have still gone back there in the middle of the day, even if there wasn't the rain to help cover things up and just take a chance to find it, knowing you probably need to get back in there? Or
probably
would you have not done that?
because I think there comes a time when you just have to understand it's not working. And if you live there, you can wait a few days for a rain or a real windy day or something, because you're going to
Yep.
get a bad weather day or two that's going to allow you to do that. I like to scout on rainy days or real windy days, or even sometimes it may be a real hot day. May have it's gotten up in the 80s in the middle of the day, and deer aren't moving, and maybe you just do it then, just move a little slower. But when you live several hours away from a place that you're hunting, you kind of got to take what you got. And
Yep.
then so we actually didn't hunt. I didn't feel comfortable with hunting hard and hunting a lot to that point, just because I didn't feel like we were on him well enough to mess the area up or overhunt it. So I just kept taking my time trying to figure out a strategy. And then I caught that one day when it was raining, and I said, shoot, I'm going to go walk around. That's when I found that one area. And it's funny how you learn about your area a lot too. You know, had it been a place that I'd known a little bit better, I would have already known that little
Sure.
area existed. But I just hadn't been that far back up in there to know that it was like that. And with the
Okay.
age of the timber cut, which is another thing, I just think it's really important that we don't talk about that much. But I've had great success hunting around areas where the timber's been cut. And, you know, especially where it's been some transition areas where there's a part of it's been selectively cut and part of it's been clear cut. And those edges of habitat and the browse, I just think adds a lot of diversity. I know that deer that grow up in places where there's hardwoods like to bed in those thicker areas where the overgrowth and those treetops and things like that. And so it just makes for helping you designate specific bedding areas, which can be really tough in areas where it's big hardwoods, because a lot of times it's hard to pinpoint a bedding area if everything's just open hardwoods. But
Mm-hmm.
cutting timber just helps so much with habitat.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I feel like I've learned a lot about over the years from experience and then through Grant Woods. And it's just improving the habitat and managing the resource, the land, and the deer herd to maximize your opportunity. And so I do a lot of that. I've done it. I do it for other people. I've never
Yep.
really advertised it. We've been talking about putting something together
No, for
because
sure.
I do habitat management for people. And that's something that we're going to work harder on here in the future, because I get a lot of people that want your advice and help. And so we're going to be working on that more in the future.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing too, brother, is that you have farm after farm after farm that you have purchased, done all of that management to, grown some really big deer, and then people have seen the success. And so, I mean, it's one thing to just say you can do it, but you've got years of proven success of what it's done, of the animals you've personally hunted and done it for other people to help them have success. So no, I definitely think we'll tap into more of that and show people what you've personally done and what you can do in that regard.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's extremely gratifying when you have a property of your own and you're able to do that, and you work on it every year and you do different things to try to incorporate the different things that enhance your habitat and your attractability and just the ability to grow healthier and bigger deer. And I tell you, I get a lot of gratification out of helping other people. The first two guys that I ever helped that actually came to me and seriously paid attention and did every single thing I told them to do was here close to home in Tennessee. And I didn't know that. I knew of these guys, but I didn't know them. They ended up becoming real good friends of mine. And they wanted me to look at their farm, and because they couldn't understand why they would see really nice deer in the summer, and then going into the fall they would leave, and they weren't killing anything. And so I went in and helped them with a timber harvest plan, a management plan to put in to select cut the hardwood, the quality hardwoods, to clear cut the south facing hillsides, grow some pines, put in some new food plots. And the next year following, and they went full bore. It wasn't like a year to
Yeah,
year
they're
thing
all
with
in.
them. They went all in. They got everything
Yep.
done in 1 year. We cut the timber. We clear cut it, parts of it were the south facing hillsides, which when I say that, what I mean here in a lot of times in the hills and hardwood hills, the south facing hillsides have the poorest timber. So generally they don't grow a high quality timber crop. So you clear cut those, and that's where you plant your pines, your conifers for your bedding areas. And
Yep.
they got everything done, food plots built, whole 9 yards, 1 year done, 400 and something acres. Not that particular season, but the next season following, basically a year after everything was done, they killed a mid 150 6.5-year-old deer.
Wow.
And for the 6 or 7 years following that habitat implementation, they killed 6 or 7 bucks from 150 to just under 180,
Wow.
which is unheard of here in our area. And so it was really, it was gratifying, exciting, getting their phone calls and seeing their pictures and their gratitude for just how the property had just completely, we had transitioned it into basically just a buck magnet. They were stoked. I mean, just like couldn't have been, it was priceless. So
That's
it was
awesome.
really awesome. Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, we just cut a bunch of timber here, and the ranch did a bunch in these swamps. And I mean, just some of the aerial footage that we're seeing and what Billy and I are excited about is it's going to open up, I think, so much for us from a habitat and natural browse. And we're going to create some scenarios in there to be able to hunt and stuff. So, no, I can't wait for the next. And like you said, it's probably going to be 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's going to open up the turkey hunting, the deer hunting, all of that.
It makes such a big difference.
Areas, so.
That having those places where those hens can nest too, where they can find good places where they can hide their nests and stuff is really important. I've seen turkey numbers go up significantly, and everybody's like, well, it makes it harder to hunt. It might for a while.
I'd rather have that though.
But you've got more turkeys. And so
100%.
it makes such a difference for everything, but especially the deer. It's just amazing the transformation that takes place when there's been a timber harvest.
Yep. I'm going to ask one other question here, and it's a basic question, but when you are in that October timeframe and you've got great food around you, Spook, that's highly nutritious, what is it about the acorns that just causes those deer to just completely, and not maybe completely, but just take a hard stop on what they were eating, shift to those acorns, and then go back? What is it in there? And the reason I ask is, I know for us, we don't have a lot of oaks and acorns, but I know there are a few. And so there may be scenarios where we're missing hunting opportunities because we got to go way deep in the swamp and different places. But what is it about that acorn that just causes that deer to just shift their eating habits?
They drop everything for acorns, especially white oak acorns, but it's a carbohydrate, I guess. I think it's really almost like candy to them. They like it so well. And especially when they're fresh, man, when they start falling, and it makes it hard because a lot of times, a lot of the trees will start falling very close to the same time, and they're just going from one to the other. Yeah. And so it's very hard here in Tennessee, parts of Kentucky, where we have a lot of white oaks and a lot of oak trees in general. They're just they're just always looking for the freshest. Now, what you can learn over the years, you can use it to your advantage when you can find trees in your area that start dropping before others do. That's a great time. It's like, I don't know that there's a more sure way to kill a deer in a big buck than to find an oak tree that starts dropping a week before all the rest of them. I mean, that's money in the bank. It's money in the bank. I've got one red oak tree that had acorns every other year, and it's going to start dropping. It was a big slick bark red oak in the edge of a cattle pasture, and it would start dropping a week before everything else when it had acorns. I would drive out there in August with binoculars just to look up in that tree and see if it was hanging with acorns. I was like, I knew I was going to kill a mature buck right there. And I had a little white oak that I put a climbing stand in, and I killed 7 or 8, Pope and Young bucks out of that tree over the years. Bucks come into that red oak tree because it started dropping a week before everything else. I had 1 week to get it done. I'd hunt it every evening. I didn't care what the wind was blowing. I didn't care how hot it was. Nothing. I hunted it every evening for that time period, and it looked like hogs under it all the time. It looked like it was just deer droppings,
Yeah.
tracks, just holes. They were just it was awesome. It was awesome.
No, that's a great tip right there as far as if you can time it, like you're saying. In general, you want to be there, but if you can time it, then
I
that's a
tell you another
great
thing I've
strategy.
done.
Yep.
I'll be hunting a tree or an oak grove, and I'll be hunting it. Let's just say I'm in there in a morning time or an evening, and all of a sudden there's a tree over there 75 yards that deer are just going to like crazy, that started dropping fresher acorns. If it's morning, when it middle of the day, I'll go move my stand over there immediately, and that evening I'm gonna get in that tree. Or
Okay.
if I see it in the evening, next day I'm gonna go move over there. I've killed some really good bucks that way because of that tree's fresh. And then you might hunt that tree 2 afternoons and seeing them doing it to another tree
Yeah.
150 yards through the woods, and then you move over there. Because if you just sit there and you think, well, eventually they're going to come to this tree, no, they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, there
They've
might
eat it
be.
out. They're going.
They like to skip around to whatever tree. Now, sometimes you get in a situation where there might be, every tree might be dropping, and then it's just a crapshoot. You're
Got
just
it.
getting on a trail or a rub line or a scrape line or something where they're dropping. Now, one thing I've noticed, and this is a thing that I have done very well at, because we have so many oaks here in Tennessee and they all get to dropping. And so really it gets really tough then, super tough. It's October. Acorns are falling like crazy. It can be kind of warm. I have really good luck on my food plots, my clover plots, when it gets to the middle to the late October. I think they gorge themselves so hard on those acorns, and those acorns are so acidic that they start craving or needing some salad for their. And
Okay.
so, especially when you get there again, a weather change, a rainy afternoon, or whatever it is, I still do. I don't see as many deer, but I still have good luck hunting my food plots during that time, especially on the good days,
Okay.
because they've gorged themselves on the acorns and they need something else to go with it.
Okay. Nope. Another good spook tip. So, Spook, thank you very much, man. Great story. Before we wrap it up, if somebody, we are going to be doing a video and some things on the land management side, but if somebody was interested, should they just reach out to your Facebook and message you if
Either
they want to
message
get in
me on
touch with you?
Facebook or Instagram, or they can email me at spooknation21@gmail.com. And
Okay.
yeah, we'll figure out something, work it out, and I'll try to help you out.
Perfect. Perfect. So, well, man, I wish you the best rest of the week. We got
You too.
Memorial Day coming up here
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in a great holiday weekend, but more to come. And thank you again, my friend. Great,
Thanks,
great
buddy.
story today.
Enjoyed it as always.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, thank you. Appreciate the support. And we look forward to our next episode.